One is a classic, well, odd couple story, for lack of a better term, stringing together vignettes of two mismatched souls. The other is a slightly more structured road trip story, once again displaying the chemistry, or lack thereof, between Walter Matthau and Jack Lemmon. The Odd Couple. They Remade It.
Hi, and welcome back to another episode of They Remade It. I'm your host, Stuart.
And I'm your host, Jacob.
Time is a strange and fickle thing to you wonderful people. This is coming out in the regular, normal, scheduled time, whereas for us, it's just a few days later because I am moving here soon, so this is a strange experience for me.
Moving trip, moving cross-country as well.
Yeah, at least third cross-country. Well, third half, I don't know. I'm moving for like 15 hours away, so I am in need of getting one of these episodes recorded a little early. So if when we next come back, all of a sudden it's like we have like a billion things we've watched, or there's been some grand political event that has altered all of reality, and we're only now commenting on it, I mean, deal with it. Like, we're humans.
Yeah, I'm sorry that we're not talking about all those people, all those famous people that just died, but, what are you going to do?
Yeah. It's like some, aliens come down, they talk to like two people, then they immediately leave. It's like, what? What did they do?
I think there was supposed to be another one of those press conferences today. That's dating this record, definitely. But where the government comes out and they talk about UFO stuff, and everyone gets really hyped up for it, and they mass post on Reddit for that sweet Reddit gold about all the alien stuff that's going to come out, and then they're all disappointed because nothing ever fucking comes of anything.
Yeah, like, honestly, what the fuck? I truly don't get folks that truly think aliens have visited here. Like, we're not that special, folks. Like, we're a really loud rock is the kind of the extent of it.
Or maybe, maybe we are special. Maybe aliens that are out there are undeveloped. There's all those different theories. I forget the guy's name.
I mean, I'm sure there's been several people at this point.
Right. I know there's like there's a specific
like the guy who
guy
talks about like a great,
Yeah, his last name is used to define all these different theories, and then each of the theories has their own name. Yeah, but I can't remember who that guy is. So that's a good well to pull from, Jacob.
All this miscellaneous. We're of that kind of very. I don't know if it's a very prominent or very niche nerd group. That is to say, we've learned so much bullshit about space and nerd level shit at this point of our lives. We basically just have some nebulous cloud in our brains we can just kind of pull shit from. It's just like, oh, this theory that was talked about at some point.
Yeah. That's me with 70s CBS TV.
That's me with, I guess mostly history. Just, especially the weirdly niche period between like the Byzantines, pre-World War I, and like the Gilded Age of America.
Don't segregate yourself into specific. It's good to have sort of a different breadth.
Yeah. I hate the colonial era, though.
Well, I would have more appreciation I would appreciate more about colonial America and that sort of history if I didn't have to go through it 5 separate times in school.
I want to have a history of America class taught by someone from England. I want an unbiased view on this for once.
Well, I think it'll be biased from a slightly different perspective, perhaps. I think it's a bit impossible. If you have someone straight up telling you, okay.
French is at least like neutral enough. Like, I know they helped us during that, but they were more kind of along the lines of, listen, we are not doing this because we like you. We're doing it because we fucking hate the English. And I know that sounded more like a German accent. Go fuck yourselves.
What about the Dutch? What are the Dutch? Let's have that class.
They're probably off doing weed and stuff. I don't know if they really need to worry about us. Is that prejudiced? I don't know if that's prejudiced.
Is that an implication that? Probably not. I think it's white Europeans, but yeah. I didn't. Yeah. It's a weird state that they don't teach or learn any history because they're just high all the time. Was that the implication?
At least involving us. Like, I'm sure at the time they're just like, why the fuck would we care?
I've never even heard that podcast, so I don't give a shit about them.
I apologize for waffling, by the way, people. Like I said, it's been like 5 days for us since we recorded. I have not watched shit, so I can't really add anything to the list of what we watched this week.
Oh, really? Oh, damn. You told me. Okay. I mean, I got.
Did I?
Yeah, you did. You said I'm gonna watch something tonight, so I have something to talk about. Um,
Uh, I think I tried to, and then I realized, oh wait, I actually need to pack a bunch of shit, and so I started packing a bunch of shit.
yeah, you told me you were gonna like wash dishes or something and turn something on in the background, but it does not matter. I have
Oh, I
two
started
things.
to I started to watch more Star Trek, and then I immediately got bored. That's what I watched. I
That's an
literally I was like, you know
indictment.
what? I haven't seen. I wanted to see some more of the Next Generation because like God, I can't stand the original series for whatever reason. And I just put it on for a second. I was like, wow, I am really bored, and I really want to get some shit done.
What an indictment of the series.
Oh no, some fucking 20-something-year-old is talking shit on the Next Generation. Whatever.
I don't care about Star Trek. I don't care. I don't care. It's fine. Oh well. But yeah, I mean, I guess I can take the helm. I got a couple things.
Sure.
Not much, and I don't know how I'll stick on any one thing. But I remember telling you, but I don't remember if I brought it up on the show. But Studio Ghibli's having that 2022 fest where they're releasing one of their movies theatrically each month up until like November. And I saw the first one that they did last month, which is my favorite of their movies, Princess Mononoke, and I got a chance to see that in theaters.
Sick.
So this month, slightly less prodigious, I suppose, but they had Ponyo playing, and I went and saw that, which is the first time I've seen it in over a decade, I guess. But
I'm not a huge fan of it.
it's not great. It was weird watching it on the big screen and sort of sitting through it and only generally remembering the story. And just as I was sitting through it, I was like, oh man, I really like this mom character, and they have some cute moments. Why did I dislike this? And it really eventually I remembered why as the movie went
Oh.
on. But it's firstly it's just kind of too much fluff, which is really saying something for a Ghibli movie.
Yeah, I was about to say.
But I mean, it's sort of overindulgent in it throughout the entirety of the movie. It's not just like specific scenes where it's like, okay, well, I know what this is for the next 5 minutes. I can skip it. It's really kind of the whole thing. And I could forgive that, but I really forgot how much the third act just sort of peters out. They're really trying to build something up out of this, and then it just goes nowhere. And I forgot that's how the movie resolved itself, and I was like, oh, that's what a shame. I completely forgot about that. So
Yeah, yeah. I guess people really do kind of forget. Like, there's this whole thing of like, wow, the entire island in the area gets like totally flooded and shit, and it just kind of wraps up with the kid just going, "Yeah, I'll love her. That's it. We're good.
Yeah, I like I
Kiss the
said,
fish. We're done."
like I said, I remembered not liking it, but I forgot why, and then that came up, and I was like, that's the biggest reason. There are other like things throughout that I have qualms with, but some of them are just more general. I'm pretty sure we brought it up on our Secret World of Arietti podcast, but one of the animation quirks that I really can't stand with that style, and it's really the only thing about the actual style that bugs me, but occasionally characters will get wide-eyed because they realize something, and their hair will like start to rise like they're going Super Saiyan. I can't stand that, and that happens like 20 times in this movie. Yeah, just a bunch of things that sort of culminate into this being sort of bottom tier for me. But we'll see how it ranks, because next month is actually, I think, the only Ghibli movie they're showing in this 2022 run that I have not yet seen. It's The Cat Returns, which I think is the sequel. It's like a semi-sequel to Whisper of the Heart, which I have seen. It's like based on this short story that the main character created. I haven't seen Whisper of the Heart in a very long time, but I have not seen that one. So it's not just me seeing a movie in theaters for the first time. It's me seeing it just fresh eyes. So who knows what will come of that.
I never know how much I should take my own opinions of Ghibli seriously, considering my favorite movie is still okay. Besides Howl's Moving Castle, is still The Wind Rises, and a lot of people have kind of just forgotten about that one.
The Wind, yeah, The Wind Rises is complicated. It's funny because I like the movie generally speaking, but a lot of the romantic stuff doesn't land for me, and that's like the majority of the movie.
Yeah,
So it's
yeah.
like I like it, but then I examined it for what it is, and I'm like, I say I like it, but I don't care for like 75% of the movie. So maybe I need to rewatch that and evaluate my true feelings, what I really enjoyed about it when I watched it, for me to
I think
even have that opinion.
yeah. For me, it's really is just like ooh history and ooh planes.
I like planes.
Yeah, so it hits two of my niche like fixations, and so I'm just like, all right, I'm down with this. Mediocre love story. That's honestly fine. I know there's a deeper message to it, like what does it mean to be an artist in a time of warfare in an advancing country, yada yada yada. But it's Ghibli. I want to simplify it a little.
Right.
I
It's
say
funny.
that as if any of Ghibli's films are anything close to simple when you break them down.
I mean, speaking of, like, it's. I mean, it's obvious. I know why they're doing it, but the one in November, late October, early November, that they're closing the series out on is Spirited Away, and it's funny because I think that's a good movie. I really like it. It's no wonder why it won all those awards when it came out. It's really strong. It's not my favorite. It's not even my second favorite. Probably my third. But it's just it's funny because that's like widely regarded as the best of the Ghibli movies. But any person that I've talked to in person, they're like, "Yeah, I like that movie. Spirited Away is good. Not my favorite though." And so I'm like, where is the where who is it? Who's the person?
I'll still defend it that it is probably their best movie. It is still though not my favorite. Like just because it's the best one doesn't necessarily mean I like it the best.
I mean, that is true because I've said that a lot in the past for like Disney, where it's like Alice in Wonderland's my favorite, but I think their best movie is probably Beauty and the Beast, and that's the opinion I've had for a very long time. So I guess I do understand that. I just figured I would have found someone by now who said it was their favorite one. Maybe they don't want to be seen as quote unquote basic, but I don't know. Nothing wrong with that if you like something.
I cannot imagine a single word. I can imagine a lot of words to describe someone who considers Spirited Away to be a favorite movie. Basic is not one of them, considering how many times I've seen that movie and how every time I seem to have seen it in some level of like fevered state, and so it never comes away the same.
I mean, favorite Ghibli movie. I mean,
My favorite Ghibli. I mean, yeah.
yeah. That yeah.
I mean, I think Howl's Moving Castle might be the most basic one.
Which is funny because I love the fact that you always bring that up as not your favorite, but one of your favorites because I like it okay, but that's a pretty not a lot of people really care for that one.
It's just like honestly, I like basic occasionally. I think it's just like what. I know there's a deeper political thing here, but I think Howl is silly and everything. I think the whole situation's just kind of fun. Plus, it's got steampunk elements that gets me pretty instantly.
I
Like,
see what you mean. Okay, basic in terms of story. I thought you meant like it's a basic choice for favorite Ghibli movie, and I was like, I meet a lot of people that don't like that one. But I think we are now in sync. We are now on the same page.
Indeed. I have dragged on this bit for you far long past me having my own thing to watch, so I'm glad for that at least.
I was gonna say you compensated by giving us Ghibli talk because Lord knows we're probably never gonna cover them on the show again because their stuff has not been touched. But will it be?
Yeah.
I don't know. So speaking of movies that sort of peter out near the end, or don't have satisfying endings, for the first time, I finally watched 10 Cloverfield Lane just on a whim because I saw it on some service. I don't even remember. And I was like, oh, I never ended up watching this because I was not in a go to the theaters. I was not going to the theaters regularly back then. And by the time it was out on video, I heard everyone hating it, and so I had no drive to see it, I suppose. It's funny because I went into this movie fully knowing what the general plot is and knowing exactly how it ended, just because it's been so long since it came out. But I'd never seen it, so I sat down to watch it, and it's hard for me to not have the general, consensus style opinion of it's a really good movie that ends in a really stupid way. Like I wish I had a deeper thought on that, but I really came out of it just agreeing with the mass populace. Yet, like, yeah, that sucks. That's unfortunate.
I I've seen it at least most of the way through. I think I had missed bits and pieces in the middle. I think someone had it on at the time, and I just was watching it bits and pieces. Um, so yeah, pretty much same consensus there. I mainly just kind of like hate how the whole Cloverfield. I hesitate to call series has kind of gone because like I saw someone talk about the idea of a Cloverfield movies basically being kind of like their own like sort of Twilight Zone situation where any movie with Cloverfield as part of the title like that was really just meant to be like not necessarily be an interconnected thing so much as just like these individual instances of like these crazy like alien happenings, each kind of with their own premise around them. Like, it's the handheld thing with the original Cloverfield. It's the trapped underground while all the action's happening outside with, Cloverfield Lane. And then I thought they were kind of doing it with the Cloverfield Paradox that came out, that one Netflix movie.
Yeah.
where it seemed like that's kind of what they were doing, but I don't know. It still seems like they were trying to connect it a bit too much to the original one. It's like no one really got the original notes of, hey, what is this Cloverfield thing meant to actually mean? And no one actually really stuck with anything in particular. So it's like it's sort of this Twilight Zone individual vignettes. It's sort of this interconnected universe. It's just kind of stupid.
I don't know. I'm not a big fan. I'm not going to say that I've seen Cloverfield, the original Cloverfield, like twice, I think. And I'm not going to say it's a bad movie because I don't think it's a bad movie, but it's not for me. I don't really care for the found footage style of
Hmm.
most movies. It doesn't sit for me. The only one and I know I've mentioned it on the show before, the only one I really care for is The Last Broadcast, but that's because it's less people running around with shaky cam in the woods and it's more a fake PBS documentary about people going missing in the Pine Barrens. And so, it has a specific style to it. But most found footage I just don't care for. Um, it's funny though that you had brought up the connectivity because it's no secret by now that everyone knows 10 Cloverfield Lane was a spec script that had no connection to the Cloverfield universe and they were going to make it and then it got passed around and eventually someone was like, what if we made this a Cloverfield movie? And that's where some of those changes came in.
Hmm.
That's pretty well known. What I did not know, and I only found out recently because I was doing research after watching 10 Cloverfield Lane, that's the same exact thing that happened with the Cloverfield paradox too. And I was
Really?
like, so the entire Cloverfield series from now on is just going to be constructed out of interesting standalone movies that are bought and just absorbed into this giant mess of a series. That's a really great business model.
Honestly,
So
yeah, I kind of love that. That's weirdly brilliant because like
it's
in
brilliant that
this kind of
the stories get to be made with an excuse tied to it. It just sucks that they're changing the stories to incorporate element to like try to tie together the universes. If they didn't do that, I think it would be perfect.
I mean, like, yeah, but it's good to see some level of that, regardless. Just because God, like, I'll this is my brief moment to lambast Marvel and Disney in general, but like,
Hmm.
goddamn them for the whole process that they've made of the movie industry nowadays. Is that you can't have these grand sweeping ideas, these kind of like different movies, without them being some wider grand thing, without for people to take them seriously. And so now they've basically done the meta version of what I was saying with the whole vignettes thing. It's literally that. It's, hey, here's this strange concept, and we'll just kind of tie it in very vaguely with this one thing and let people be connected with it, and then off we go. We get to this, unused script because it actually means something.
Right. And that is cool. Like you said with the Cloverfield paradox, which I know this information now, but I have not seen it. But I got spoiled on it because of the research I'm doing. So I know what they do to try and tie this into the universe. And yeah, I just wish they weren't trying so hard with that. It would be cool if it was just a Twilight Zone style series of movies and Cloverfield is just vaguely tied into the title or the setting. Like, oh, 10 Cloverfield Lane is the location that they're at, but that doesn't mean it has to do with like this big alien monster. It like what Halloween wanted to do before Season of the Witch flopped and they resurrected Michael Myers to make money. You know,
Yeah.
I would
And
be
like,
down for that.
yeah, they could try to justify it as something of like, oh, this situation is like a Cloverfield, like it's like a code word or some shit, or like they tie it in. There's some metaphor with like a field of clovers being some shit. Like like each of these situations is what's considered their four-leaf clover in this field.
The diamond in the rough, the rare event. I don't know. That's something. That's
It's it's
interesting.
it's it's
More
more than
than
what they've done with it so far.
exactly. And
So fuck it.
apparently, there's a Cloverfield series being made. I didn't look too much into that because I didn't really care. But
Can't wait. Can't wait to see how they fuck that up. Where they just go like, oh, it is all like perfectly connected and it's all a Marvel style extended universe, and I'll just die a little bit more inside.
well,
Uh,
how do you like that, folks? We had a Cloverfield talk and we had Ghibli talk. You're getting
woo!
your fake money's worth, your meta bucks, your Zucker bucks worth on this show.
Oh Christ. This has either aged it terribly or aged it beautifully, depending on whether or not meta has actually taken off.
If it's truly taken off, then we're so fucked that, I don't see the show surviving. I see all the archive just disappearing. That will be the bad timeline.
I mean, I still don't use Facebook. Who gives a fuck?
I mean, I don't either. I had it. I set it up years and years ago, and I never used it. And then finally, I was like, "Why is this sitting around?" And I think 2018, I just straight up deleted it, and I have not had one since. So,
Cool.
oh no, I can't stay in touch with people I don't like.
Uh, anyway, we have another thing we're doing here, right?
Oh yeah, I think so. We're going to be discussing. I don't know. I don't have a segue, man. Two people that don't like each other. Like me and all those Facebook people. I don't know. I am
That's honestly not a terrible segue.
I am the Jack
You,
Lemmon to Facebook's Walter Matthau, I guess.
you say all this as if this is a bad segue. This is honestly a pretty good segue. It's The Odd Couple.
They are known as the couple. They're never seen alone, so they're known as the couple. As I've indicated, they are never quite separated. They are reason apart, don't you think that it's odd? Their habits I confess, none can guess with the couple.
Firstly, we'll be talking about The Odd Couple, 1968, directed by Gene Saks and written by Neil Simon. So first thing to know with this is that newly separated Felix Unger, played by Jack Lemmon, is wandering New York City in a daze with vague ideas of committing suicide. Now with that cheery notion out there, we go to divorced sports writer Oscar Madison, played by Walter Matthau, and his card-playing cronies Murray, played by Herb Edelman, Speed, Larry Haynes, Roy, David Shiner, and Vinny, John Fiedler, as they have assembled in Madison's Upper West Side apartment for their Friday night poker game. Murray is concerned because their mutual friend, Felix, is unusually late for the game. Murray's wife calls and informs them that Felix is, in fact, missing. Oscar then calls Felix's wife Frances, who tells him that she and Felix have broken up. Felix arrives, not knowing that everyone has already heard that he and his wife have separated, and the group attempts to pretend nothing is wrong, but Felix eventually breaks down crying and his friends attempt to console him. After everyone leaves, Oscar suggests that Felix move in with him, since Oscar has lived alone since he split up with his own wife, Blanche, some time earlier. Felix agrees and urges Oscar to not be shy about letting him know if he gets on Oscar's nerves. Within only a week, the two men discover that they are, frankly, incompatible. Felix runs around the apartment cleaning, picking up after Oscar, and berating him for being so sloppy. Felix refuses to have any fun as well, spending most of his time thinking about Frances instead. While at a tavern, Oscar tells Felix about two English sisters he recently met who live in their building, Cecily and Gwendolyn Pigeon, played by Monica Evans and Carol Shelley, respectively. Oscar telephones the girls and arranges a double date for the following evening. The next night, Oscar tries to get uptight Felix to loosen up by leaving him alone with the two flirtatious Pigeon sisters while he leaves the room to mix the drinks. Instead, Felix talks incessantly about his family, breaks down weeping, and burns the meatloaf. Furious about Felix's ruining the date, Oscar resorts to giving Felix the silent treatment and torturing him by deliberately making the apartment as much of a mess as possible. Eventually, the tension explodes into an argument that results in Oscar demanding that Felix move out. Felix complies, but leaves Oscar feeling guilty for having abandoned his still-in-need friend. Therefore, Oscar assembles his poker group to help search the city for Felix. After searching for hours, they return to Oscar's apartment to play poker and soon discover that Felix has moved in with the Pigeon sisters. Felix and Oscar apologize to each other, realizing that a bit of each has rubbed off on the other, with each being a better person for it. Felix promises that next week he will attend their usual Friday night poker game, and after Felix's final exit, the once slovenly Oscar tells his friends to watch their messes as the poker game continues. And next is The Odd Couple 2 from 1998, directed by Howard Dutch and, once again, written by Neil Simon. It has been 17 years since Oscar Madison and Felix Unger, once again played by Matthau and Lemmon, have seen one another. Oscar is still hosting a regular poker game and is still an untidy slob now living in Sarasota, Florida, but still a sports writer. One day, he is called by his son Brucey, played by Jonathan Silverman, with an invitation to California for his wedding the following Sunday. A second shock for Oscar, however. The woman his son is marrying is Felix's daughter, Hannah, played by Lisa Waltz. On the flight from New York to Los Angeles, it becomes clear that Felix has not changed his ways. He is still a fussy, allergy-suffering neat freak nuisance. Oscar and Felix are reunited at the airport and very happy to be together again after 17 years of separation. At least for a couple of minutes. They share a rental car to San Molina for the wedding, however, the trip begins with Oscar forgetting Felix's suitcase at the budget car rental, including wedding gifts and wardrobe inside. On the trip, Felix falls asleep and Oscar takes a wrong turn onto the freeway, then loses the directions to San Molina when his cigar ashes burn them. He and Felix become hopelessly lost and cannot remember the name of the town where they are headed, so many California cities sounding alike to them. They end up in a rural area and argue about Felix's lost suitcase when the rental car rolls off a cliff and catches fire. If that were not enough, they get arrested several times by the same local police in Santa Menendez, first for catching a ride in a truck carrying illegal Mexican immigrants. They're released after the truck driver confesses and learn the name of the town where the wedding will take place. At a bar in town, they meet two extroverted women, Thelma and Holly, played by Christine Baranski and Jean Smart, and buy them drinks. Accepting an offer of a ride from a stranger even older than themselves, Felix and Oscar end up inside a $150,000 vintage Rolls-Royce Silver Wraith and end up trapped on the wrong side of the road when the stranger dies unexpectedly. Felix and Oscar are arrested a second time by the same Santa Menendez police, but again are released when it is discovered that the elderly man died of natural causes. Frustrated that this is the second time they have been arrested in Santa Menendez, the police chief advises Oscar and Felix to take a bus to San Molina. On the bus, they meet Thelma and Holly, who are running away from their redneck husbands. However, the bus gets stopped by the husbands, who take their wives along with Oscar and Felix at gunpoint, and in their car tell them that they are going to cook a couple of fine geezers in the woods for flirting with their wives. Somehow, however, the bus driver informs the police of the husband's use of a gun on a public vehicle, and their car is stopped at a police roadblock before anything happens to Oscar and Felix. Everyone is again taken into custody by the Santa Menendez police. After meeting with the police chief for the third time, the boys are freed and driven directly to the local airport by the police, who are only too pleased to be rid of them, especially the chief, who tells his deputies not to arrest them again even if they were to commit notorious crimes. A woman boarding the airplane is also en route to the wedding and recognizes them. She's Felice Adams, the sister of Oscar's ex-wife Blanche. Felice is played here by Mary Beth Teal. Felix's eyes light up when he learns that her husband died of a heart attack, and they are mutually attracted. They arrive at the wedding house only to find that Brucey is having second thoughts about the wedding due to his parents' bad history with marriage. Felix and Oscar argue with their ex-wives, after which Oscar persuades his son to go through with it. Felix's suitcase is returned, and the wedding goes off without a hitch. The next day, Felix and Felice leave together on one flight to her home in San Francisco and part ways with Oscar, who returns to Florida. Oscar, in Florida, is telling his poker friends about the wedding when the doorbell suddenly rings. It is Felix, who says things with Felice didn't quite work out. Felix wonders if he could possibly move in with Oscar until he finds his own place. Oscar initially refuses, but eventually relents, insisting their days of being roommates will be over if Oscar catches Felix matching any of his socks, to which Felix very happily agrees. Before long, Felix cleans up the apartment, and Oscar is overcome with a sense of having been through all of this before.
A lot of shit there.
The end. A tale as old as time, as they say. Oh, however, we are not done. We're only just getting started as we hop into Full Circle. It's not that bad this time, I promise. Okay, so we only have 4 this time around, 2 for each of these movies. So we'll just go ahead and hop right into it with Iris Adrian, who played the waitress. Iris Adrian was the waitress in 1968 Odd Couple, and she was a passenger on a bus in 1976's Freaky Friday. The big and potentially more obvious one for the 68 Odd Couple is, of course, John Fiedler, who played Vinny. We also saw him as Lawyer Daggett in the 1969 John Wayne classic True Grit. And he was also the voice of Piglet, not only in The Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh, but for pretty much all Winnie the Pooh-related media up until his death in the 2000s. He's just got an unmistakable voice. Now for the Odd Couple 2, we have Bernard Hughes, who played Beaumont in the movie. He was also Dr. Walter Gibbs in 1982's Tron. Remember that delightful character?
Nope.
Me neither. Well, we also have Lou Cattell, who played Abe at the poker club in The Odd Couple 2. He was also Frightened Villager in 1974's Young Frankenstein. So another recognizable face. That's it for Full Circle.
Well then, I'll let you have a bit of a rest after that cavalcade of events. Honestly, I did not know what on God I was expecting from both of these movies. The last thing in the world, though, I was expecting was an extended bit about one of the main character's friends having to be on constant suicide watch for him. That was a bit of a shocker. But you know what? I'm glad it set the tone immediately, I think. Actually, I don't know, because it never quite got that dark again. Even though, like, it's all done with this air of like comedy to it, obviously. But like, it is the definition of dark comedy when it comes right down to it, that it never really gets back to that level throughout the movie, which honestly, I think it made the rest of the movie easier to do with. That's not to say it was hard necessarily to deal with, but there was, chaos and strange situations abound. And it's just like really weird comparing that to the intro, where it is literally just the main character renting a hotel room, preparing with all likelihood to jump from a high level building, and fails to do so because of a stuck window and a bad back. All right.
I love that. You can view, obviously it's set up as comedic, this whole suicide bit in the first movie. Just through the frantic worrying of the poker party at him, trying to do something. But I try to view it as just an extremely long setup for all these characters being worried, especially Matthau's character, Oscar, until, finally he first snaps at Felix. And I love that because his whole plan seems to be to make a mess for everybody, frankly, by jumping out of the window of a hotel and then eventually curious to do it in Oscar's apartment. So he asks him, what is this, the 12th floor? And Oscar goes, no, it's the 11th floor. And then they move in together, a bit of time passes, and he's getting so annoyed that as Felix goes to bed, he walks over and he opens up the window and he just shouts, it's the 12th floor! That final indictment of, I'm finally fed up with you, jump, I don't care. And there's something oddly humorous about it to me if I view it as just a 15-minute setup to this one joke. Because I like things that are long and played out.
It does feel like this movie in general. It feels kind of like both of them in a way. But like, it is strange watching both these movies back to back because they are both a combination of it is a direct sequel. Like you have to have known at least the vague relationship between these two main characters prior to going into the sequel to actually understand what the hell's going on, or at least like why these guys in particular are stuck with each other. But also for the fact that these are two very different plotted movies, each kind of unique for their own time period. Like one definitely feels like one of those, domestic comedies that was a very big thing back in its originals day, like very sort of I Love Lucy, like, if I Love Lucy had the piss taken out of it. Um, and then the sequel being quirky road trip style movie with, like or sideshow adventures, essentially winding them up in absurd situations. See Rat Race and every movie from the mid to late '90s in general.
Oh yeah.
And so like I don't really know how to feel about them because I feel like they both have their own identity, but it's not strong enough to dissuade it from the fact that on their own they are weirdly generic. But save for the fact of, again, aforementioned drawn out suicide humor, and the second one's clear connection to the original and the relationship and chemistry that these two characters had originally. And so it's hard to really tell where my opinions lie in general about how these movies feel.
And it's interesting that they wanted to do a flat out sequel 30 years later, explicitly just for the fact that the 1968 Odd Couple, it was a well loved movie. It's one of the definitive Matthau Lemmon pictures too. People like it as a comedy, but the Odd Couple as a general idea, Neil Simon, who I credit as the writer for both of these movies, he wrote the play, which it was a play originally that was performed on stage and then obviously got adapted into this movie. But there was a 70s series with Tony Randall and Jack Klugman. I think there was a cartoon. I think there was an African-American version of The Odd Couple. There was a 2015 one recently with Matthew Perry as well. So there's been a bunch of iterations that have happened. So it's strange to go back specifically to this one iteration that's doing the same thing as all the others. And I think that the 70s TV show is remembered just as well as the 68 movie was, even though they're completely different actors. But they weren't trying to make like a movie follow-up to the series. I'm curious as to what explicitly motivated it at the time. I don't have that knowledge, but, also just to be able to get not only Matthau and not only Lemmon, but it appears Neil Simon, not just credited with the original conception of the play. It seems he had something to do with the actual construction of the sequel movie, according to what I've read. So where did this come from?
Yeah, I'm sure the concept itself kind of existed on its own as well, but like, I don't know. Like it feels both very specific and also like really generic all at the same time. And it's just weird watching it with that in mind of like, wow, this really is just straight up a parody version of all these different domestic TV shows. And it's very funny. Obviously I adored it, but like, where the fuck is this going? Mainly is kind of the end thought. Cause like, it seemed like at times it really is going to have like this genuine kind of friendship interaction between these two characters. But even kind of by the end of both of them, they both still just kind of hate each other. And, like, I know that's meant to be the thing of like, oh, it's these geezer types, or it's like, oh, these wise guy types who like, the idea of their friendship and our idea of animosity are pretty much one and the same. And so it's, I guess, all fine. But at the same time, I don't really walk away from either of these particularly satisfied.
Right. It's funny because I know for a fact that Matthau and Lemmon were friends in real life, but a lot of their it's not like they were a comedy team, like Martin and Lewis or something beforehand. It's just in these movies, but they always seem to be in the movies at odds because they play really well as being against each other. Like, for example, I don't know if you've ever seen it, but Grumpy Old Men from the early 90s, that's them too. Jack Lemmon and Matthau in these elderly men roles, and they're like fighting over women or whatever. It's like, it's just really, it's fun to see these two against each other, regardless of the types that they're playing. I know that on more than one occasion, Matthau asked if he could, instead of the Oscar part, play the Felix part, because he thought it would be more of a challenge for him, so it'd be more interesting. But they'd still be at odds, regardless of what part they played, because that seems to be the chemistry that has been crafted for them, which is also interesting.
I also can't really think of a whole lot of like big double acts that aren't particularly at odds with each other. Like the possible exception being like the Marx Brothers, but they have a trio at a minimum, and so like they can all kind of play off each other differently. But for the most part, when it's duos, they kind of have to be at odds. It feels like, right? I
Even
can't really
Willie
think of another
Tyler and
example.
Lester. Even Willie Tyler and Lester. Lester always called him the dummy.
Yeah. I mean, we got Bert and Ernie. It's like, God knows those two, gay as the day is long, but still, like, they hated each other's guts, or at least Bert hated him, or Ernie hated. I don't know which one's the happy one, which one's the angry one. It's been years.
Bert, Ernie is orange. Bert is yellow.
Bert's the asshole. Got it.
Yeah, he goes Ernie. Yeah, I don't think Burns and Allen hate each other. I see what you're getting at though. I'm not claiming it to be original.
Right.
In that regard. I just do think it's interesting. I guess from a movie perspective, but even then, that's not the first because like we saw it for example in It's a Mad, 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 Mad World, but it's happened plenty of other places where Buddy Hackett and Mickey Rooney were paired together as well, but they didn't have like a stage act. It was just this weird like, these two have chemistry. Let's put them in Lord Love a Duck. I don't know. Put them in all these weird movies that no one's ever gonna see.
I mean, fair enough.
Yeah,
man.
But all the I guess general comedy team antics aside, it's odd, and I don't know exactly where we'll end up on this because although different plotting, we had a very similar discussion in the Muppet movie episode we did back in I guess 2020, where it's sort of an example of a vignette style story that does have an overarching theme, but it's a bunch of different events sort of threaded together, which is very similar to the Muppet movie. And then the sequel, Odd Couple 2, it has a definitive endpoint. They have a goal they're trying to reach, and it's just, you can still classify it as vignettes, I suppose. Them getting kidnapped off a bus, or them in the car with this old man that dies at the wheel. But they are threaded together with like what the end goal is supposed to be.
Yeah.
That being getting to the wedding of each of their children. So
Yes.
I'm curious what your thoughts are on that in terms to structure, because in the Muppet episode, I was more in favor of the threaded vignette style story, and you preferred the much more structure heavy one. I want to know if that also applies here in more of a sequel case. I guess these films are connected a lot easier.
I think the chemistry that these two characters got going together serves vignettes a bit better, simply for the fact of all the random scenarios that they kind of individual moments they have in the first one are genuinely hilarious and kind of like self-contained. Whereas when you're in a situation where it's meant to be that structured plot, where kind of the road trip aspect and, with the end goal in mind, it just kind of at a certain point just starts to make you think, how have these guys even retained even a facsimile of friendship with the amount of bullshit that they've had to deal with? Like, even within this universe's, it's not even that this particular universe's strained reality. It's like, the first movie established that it's about as realistic as it can be. They don't do anything absurd, It's just like one's very neurotic and one's the opposite, and they just kind of butt heads against each other in a bit more of a a bit more, open and loud way that serves it to be entertaining. But the other one, it just kind of just starts throwing random situations at us, very Rat Race style, to the point of like, why is all of this happening to these old men? And like the whole thing of like the redneck like wives and everything kind of hitting on them and everything. Even that, I was like, all right, fuck off with this. Like, really, is this where we're going with this plot right now?
It doesn't help that you can see it. You can sort of see the outcome of that coming from a mile away as well.
Yeah, and like you can, and it's a bit more unpredictable in the original because it's like I didn't necessarily expect that the two British ladies were like. Obviously, I saw that like they were going to have some bearing on the overarching plot since they enjoy how like sensitive he is in comparison to like Oscar. But like the fact of he just casually is like moving in with them, it's like, oh wow, damn bro, good job.
They're gonna have a Three's Company situation. He's gonna be the John Ritter in the middle of that.
Like, my goodness gracious. But and also to that, like, because like that's like kind of unpredictable. And it's like, oh, that's fun. I didn't expect that ending. It's pretty good, and it kind of also just shows how each of those characters have kind of changed and grown as people. Like, yeah, there's actual growth here, and these are real human beings, and like they're sort of like gay for each other, but also like not in that like that weird domesticity kind of way, since they call each other by their ex's wives' names there at the very end. So it's like, okay, fine, whatever. It's fun. It's kind of interesting and open-ended like that. But then we get to the sequel, and all that's kind of been seemingly dropped. Like, they more just seem very tired versions of the start versions that they were at the very beginning of the original movie. Not necessarily the people who've grown, because, Oscar's still a slob, not comedically level, but still. And, Felix is still neurotic. And it just seems like all of his relationships have seemingly gone just as poorly. I don't even know if the Pigeon sisters get brought up in the sequel. If they did, it was passing.
Oh, they definitely do not. I was on the watch for any reference. Like, I was like, are they going to bring up Murray? Because if you ignore
Like, they
just
introduced a
extras
lot
in
of
the background, there's not a lot of characters in the original, so it's easy to keep track of the cast.
Yeah, they each kind of serve their own little purpose and everything, which is honestly fine. I think all the like the poker player characters are great. I think they all have just enough personality to be interesting. And I think they kind of more act as the Greek chorus of this movie, which is honestly a hilarious way for me to think about it.
Yeah.
But like the fact that that's all kind of just dropped and it's just kind of a pretty generic, a buddy road trip movie, or like buddy absurd road trip movie for the sequel is just kind of disappointing. Like it definitely seemed like they were going somewhere. Like I thought they were gonna, like if you did something with a sequel, like to maybe expand on how they feel about each other. It's like, we can make jokes about it all we want, but it's like for fuck's sake, like are these guys meant to be like they're called the odd couple and everything, and we're seriously meant to just overlook of like, oh no, it's just bros being bros. It's like, do they have feelings for each other or do they not? What the fuck's going on? This shit's just weird at this point.
Well, it's definitely weirder in the night, because the Odd Couple back when the couple literally just two people, as the grouping, but in the 90s, and well, that doesn't help because I don't know all the words to it, but I know that there were words that were written for the Odd Couple theme song so that the person that wrote them could get royalties whenever the song is played because there's weird rules for that, and it's like when people see us walk, people think we're a couple, something like that. So there are still at least implications there, but that's never followed up on. And to sort of go back to another point that you made, it's unfortunate because I think the existence of the sequel kind of undermines a lot of the brilliance of the original. If you're sort of taking both of them in this canon, I can't believe I said canon for The Odd Couple, but because the ending of the movie. The original movie, like I said in the synopsis, they both grow in different ways and have impacted each other. Felix, he's moving on from Francis, not just in that he's trying to move out and get on his own, but he's got this John Ritter situation going with the Pigeon Sisters. So it's like, oh, is he gonna go for one of them? Who knows? And then Oscar is having, he's cleaning up after people in his apartment and asking him to use coasters like Felix would do. So it's like, oh wow. But then come the start of The Odd Couple 2, they're both back on their bullshit doing the exact same thing. Oscar is at this elderly poker table, which I didn't even know they were playing poker until I read that in the synopsis. I assumed it was like bridge. It really didn't seem like they were playing poker, but whatever. And all these old women are there. Fucking Alice Ghostly is there, the female Paul Lynde, and he's like giving them old food and weird tea and ordering things for himself that he'll eat later, and he's dumping trash out the window. It's like, okay, so it's like none of the, the funny impact that they had on each other's lives even mattered at the end, which was sort of a beautiful send-up. It just erased all of that so that we could have a status quo to move from. It's like, okay. Disappointing.
Like, I think they really just need, because, like, this is another one of those situations where you just have to ask at a certain point, what was the point of making a sequel to this if all the stuff that happened in the original was pretty much moot? Because, like, there really was just like, okay, I'm sure like Matthau and Lemmon to some degree wanted to have this made or like one or the other or both, whatever, and just kind of rolled with it and just like realized they had to have an actual plot, and to do that you have to have that status quo, like you said. And so it's just kind of disappointing. It's like this is pretty generic, even by generic goes. Like it helps with the fact of we don't have to like establish necessarily like an extreme amount of chemistry between the two because they already have it established. But that's a lot to ask of an audience, given that the original was 30 years prior. Like, we have the benefit of the modern era where we can just immediately be like, okay, I'll watch this movie that's available online at all times. It's like, I'm sure back in the 90s it wasn't exactly simple. It's like, sir, someone watched this, it was like, what the fuck is this? Were they playing the original in the theaters at the same time for context? What the fuck?
I mean, maybe. I don't know. It might have been, come the 90s, at the very least, TV was more of a thing, so maybe it was in some syndication packages. Maybe it was airing on, like, the ABC Movie of the Week every now and then. I'm not sure. But I don't know. It's definitely, I don't know. It's an interesting thought. I still have questions on that'll definitely never get answered.
Yeah, fair.
The oddest bit of this too is that, like you said, they kind of feel they're trying to capitalize on this one concept of two mismatched characters that are forced to interact with each other on a constant basis. Even when they're not home, they're safe because like Lemmon's character is calling Matthau at work and disrupting his day. So that's the entire purpose of it. But the 90s one also goes for a little more of that grungy and something. It's because of the time period. There's something more, even in a sloppy apartment. There's something more refined in the 60s version compared to dank bars with tits out dancing and fucking Jack Lemmon's character. They have Felix Unger say fuck like 5 times in the sequel, and I was like,
Yeah.
holy shit, the first time that happened. I was like, Jesus.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised about that. It's like, was this meant to be a rated R film? I can't remember.
Yeah, that's I don't know.
It's very all over the place. You get right down to it.
And yeah,
I
it
think,
makes for a frustrating watch as well.
but also like in the end, doesn't actually even really lend itself to those two characters' entire personality styles in the original. Because like the original, the whole point of it is one is basically probably has undiagnosed OCD. The other has undiagnosed, I don't know, something. Maybe just
Depression?
he's probably
I
just
have no
lazy.
idea.
He's probably just lazy. Honestly, it's probably some level of depression, but like even still, um, and so like it's meant to be like how it reflects on their environment around each other and like how their behavior interacts in that domestic context. Putting it into a very dynamic context of a road trip where they don't have any need to fold clothing and all that sort of shit. Like the most we kind of have is they forget the one suitcase that gets kind of brought back with no issue by the end. And then the own Oscar's suitcase and his living style being a bit more janky. It's like that's kind of the extent of it. Otherwise, it's pretty much just them bumming around until they manage to make it to the wedding. It's like, what was the point of any of this? If you're gonna just toss the whole point of their personality traits out the window.
I was gonna say another a quality of these movies is, or of the attempts of these movies, is that Matthau does these quippy one-liners or whatever, not like Joss Whedon style, but just punchy follow-ups to shit on everybody around him. But not only that, but just the situations. Nothing for me in the sequel really made me laugh at all, except for when Oscar's picking his luggage up at the airport and his suitcase comes down and hits the side and just busts open with all his clothes everywhere. And he sees this happen in real time, and without a beat, he's just like, is this how you people run an airport? And he's like, I'm gonna file a complaint. And I was like, okay, I guess that's kind of funny. But that's like in the first 10 minutes of the fucking movie, too. Like,
Yeah.
it's not humorous. Whereas the original, while having some faults in various places, it managed, for me at least, to be funny and surprising at the same time. There's like, when in the period where they're not really speaking to one another, and Matthau is insulting Lemmon's spaghetti, and he goes, it's not spaghetti, it's linguine. And he picks up the plate, and he throws it at the wall, and it shatters above the sink, and I was like, oh my god. And then he looks at Lemmon, and he goes, now it's garbage. I was like, that's funny, but it also caught me off guard, which is weird for a comedy, for me to like be taken aback, like, oh, I wasn't expecting that to happen just now.
Yeah. It's what I hate? I hate the 90s fucking need of adding all these like musical cues and like sound cues and everything alongside any time something funny is supposed to happen or something absurd is happening. Like when the car's rolling off the cliff or like when they're interacting with all these different people, there's all this like stupid music going on in the background. It's like, shut the hell up. Like the original one, it barely ever had music except during transition scenes and maybe during like a couple of the more, not even during more dramatic scenes. It really was just like kept for periods whenever the scene would change or like near the beginning and the end of the movie, or when it's more towards the beginning of him just like wandering while the credits are still rolling on the screen. It's all otherwise left to be purely organic and just lets the comedy speak for itself. And so we have these very long take shots of these guys having these really silly interactions, whereas the 98 one can't fucking stop cutting away and getting fucking musical cues all over the place. It's so annoying. Once I noticed it, I couldn't stop noticing it. It's like, oh my god, just leave it alone. Whoever with the sound mixer guy was just could not let up.
And you know what? Speaking of the fucking sound mixer guy, something that really pissed me off, I like the Neal Hefti score, and I like the Odd Couple theme. I assume that's the name of it. Just the da-da-da-da-da-da-da. It's nice. The sequel plays that music throughout the entire movie, like constantly. They'll have a scene where there's like this weird incidental music going on as they're both in traffic, facing the wrong way, trying to flag down cars. But then when they give up, they're walking down the road and the music comes, the theme song comes in again. And it plays like a million times in this movie to like punctuate scenes. And I was starting to get sick of it. And I'm like, that's unfortunate for a song that, I otherwise like. It's like, do your own thing and just have it as, even as a motif, like change it up or like do an underscore of it for certain theme. Like maybe it could be some cheesy fun when they were dancing with those redneck women in the bar, if it was like a country version of that theme or something. I don't know.
Like do something with what you've been given.
Yeah, instead of just plug and play.
Yeah. That really could just sum up the sequel as much as possible. Do something with what you've been given.
Stop squandering opportunities.
It's just, yeah. It. I hate that this has basically just kind of become a shitting on the sequel session, but honestly, now the more and more I think about it, the more I think it deserves it. Like, I really don't know why this couldn't have been any other setup for what is essentially just a very generic cross country trip thing. And not even
Exactly.
cross country, just like trying to get out of one town.
We've seen this premise so many times before and so many times since too. At its core, like the fucking Emperor's New Groove is a road trip movie. Like this is nothing. Like I don't understand why this had to be not even just the Odd Couple. Why it had to specifically be the Matthau Lemmon Odd Couple in this situation. I don't get I don't get the decision behind this. And I'm sorry, I looked up information earlier while I was talking to sort of get some information on this. And I can't tell you why it was made. But I can tell you that Neil Simon did in fact write the script to this, Odd Couple 2, and it sat in a desk for like 10 years before it finally got made. So he did write it. I just don't know why.
God only knows, my friend. It's just it just kind of is that situation of like, we're talking about the good side of this earlier with Cloverfield of like, okay, here's a crazy kind of script thing, let's add it under the Cloverfield umbrella to see like, so something good can see the light of day. Whereas now it's something of, hey, this sat in a desk for forever. Probably should have stayed there. It's like,
See,
like I don't see the need of this, and like I fail to even grasp how this could be something that sat in a desk for so long because it's so generically '90s specific road trip movie. Like, it is so of its own time that it seems impossible that it could have been written anything prior to 1992.
I mean, that's a good point. I don't. Maybe originally it was more of a planes, trains, and automobiles sort of situation where they were still going to this wedding, but they had to take all these different modes of transportation and they kept running into each other. I don't know. I'm sure it was adapted once it finally got made, but there can't have been too much that was changed because I didn't see anyone else credited as writer, and a lot of times with altered scripts they'll have like additional writing credits or adaptation credits or whatever, and I didn't see anything like that, so I don't know. But everyone go ahead and pull out your bingo cards and put a big old red dot on the we really played our hand here box, because
it's pretty, I mean, like, there are times when like we go into this, it's pretty clear it's going to be a turkey shoot. There's other times where we go into it where we kind of realize partway through that we need to change our opinion, and then there's times where it's kind of in the middle, where I knew going into this, like, even on the surface, the original is kind of the better film. It's just, I think it's funnier. I think it's a bit more organic with its comedy. It doesn't fall to as many tropes. At least, like, or rather cliches, rather. Tropes on their own are fine. Cliches are like when it's, like, all, like, tired out and everything. That's a big distinction. Cinema sense. Anyway. But having now talked about it more and more and being able to dissect it, I realize more and more it's like, it's not just that it's a weaker sequel, it's just kind of a hack of a sequel. It's just like, it doesn't really do anything with it. It's like, what was the point of having all of this done? Like, if they had done a direct sequel kind of more recently after the original of kind of a road trip style, it would have been more contemporary. It would have probably had more to take advantage with, like, the chemistry that they had in the original film, because they'd probably, better remember it and better write it. And we probably could have had a lot more bits that would have actually felt like it's the original characters.
right.
But
And
as it is...
it probably wouldn't be the road trip story either, because if it had been done organically just maybe five or 6 years after the fact, the old men going to the wedding of their children concept wouldn't even really fly unless they gave them like old man makeup. Like, that would have been weird. So it would have been a completely different concept that may have been less generic anyways too.
Right. And they could have done like some other reasoning for needing a road trip. But like I would have liked to have seen this concept of them like on the road versus being in a domestic setting. I think that could have been funny if it were done properly. But as it is, it's just kind of like they just took this interesting concept and made it pretty boring.
Right. I don't get it. If this didn't have Odd Couple, I mean, I don't know what I was about to say, because it's not like people are talking about the Odd Couple 2 all the time, but if this didn't have like Odd Couple ties, this could have been literally anybody, like, not 1998 necessarily, but, well, maybe. I don't know, David Spade and Chris Farley could have been in this thing. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
And it would have just been forgotten. Like it already is. Like, it's not like it's held back necessarily, even just by its ties to the original, because it doesn't work inherently. The only thing that having it tied to the original Odd Couple movie does is weaken the original movie by association.
Yeah, it's just not really. It's just not great. That's my grand overarching opinion. It ain't great. The original, even like on my own, like I think it's fine. I get right down to it. I definitely think it's funny. I don't think I'd watch it again. I think I kind of get the gist the first way through.
Mm-hmm. No, I
Like
see
the-
that.
You know,
Yeah.
it's pretty much a one trick concept, and they didn't even go as far as the one trick in the sequel. So it really is just a situation. I just need to find someone who's part of it and just ask, why did you do this? Like you did something different with it, yes, but you did it so different that it's just kind of not the same film series anymore. Or I hesitate to call it series. It's just not the same characters or anything anymore.
Right. It's the same characters in that one is sloppy and one is neat. Like, okay.
And even that isn't really touched on that much. It's more just one's neurotic and one's a bit more c'est la vie.
I mean, when you get right down to it, that's something that I didn't really think of, but Felix, as a character, like, his neuroses and, like, his OCD nature and all of that, neither of them really come up a whole lot in the sequel, but I'd say that his stuff comes up more than Oscar's does. Like, you see the sloppiness at his apartment, but besides that, and I guess the luggage in the airport, but besides that, it really doesn't matter. It's just him being annoyed at all times.
Yeah. And, Felix just being panicked at all times.
Yeah. Which, okay. But,
Like,
I mean,
congratulations, you've written every buddy act ever.
it's... I guess to that end, I do find the original pretty funny. It has tons of moments that are laugh out loud. I'm not holding it up as like a pinnacle of comedy, but I think it's pretty good. I think it's pretty funny. And I'm not the type of person to really rewatch movies in general, but I guess the best metric for me in that sense is I wouldn't turn it off, I guess, if it were to come on in the future. Or it's something that, if I had a couple choices for movie night with somebody, I might pick it, especially if they hadn't seen it.
There you go,
But
folks.
it's not like this is, this is on my top 20 list. I'm going to definitely order this on Blu-ray. And
That's that, I suppose. Showed our hand pretty early on it, but honestly, fuck it.
there's no other way. And, like, this isn't even like a... It's not even like a Odd Couple 2 is so bad, like a Secret of NIMH 2 or an Easy Rider 2 or whatever. Fuck me and my fucking sequel picks. But it's not even, like, abhorrent like that. It's just bland. It's generic. It doesn't really work.
Yeah.
And really,
Yeah.
isn't that the ultimate sin?
I mean, I think murder's still pretty bad.
Yes, and lust.
I mean, like, give or take.
Don't
It's
do
consensual.
it. Not even once.
Yeah. Asexuality forever.
Oh, I'm going to go
This
with
has gotten away
socials.
from us. This has gotten away from us.
So, as far as socials go ahead and follow us on any of the podcasting platforms that you listen to. Like, subscribe, leave a review, comment. We're on all the podcasting platforms pretty much. Apple Podcasts, Google Play, YouTube, Spreaker, Podbay, Podomatic, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, and YouTube. But we're hosted on Anchor, and you can listen to podcasts through Anchor as well. So, yeah, maybe give that a try. Who knows? Go ahead and send us an email, theyremadeit@gmail.com. If you have any, suggestions for episodes in the future, you just want to chat, positives, negatives about the show, whatever you're feeling, we'll take it. We just got a request that we just did an episode on for Carrie, which actually just released today, earlier today, as of the recording, not as of when this is coming out, but I'm sure you guys figured that out. You're a smart audience.
Time is fickle, but you guys are smart enough for that at this point.
Yeah, I won't belittle your intelligence any further. I'm sure you're all smarter than I am. And go ahead, follow us on at It Remade on Twitter for podcast updates for when episodes go live, potential episodes that we may cover in the future, posters and promo art and all sorts of things for different subjects and topics that we've discussed on the show, and full circle diagrams that I've been putting together as well based on people we've covered in the full circle segments. And that is it for socials.
Fantastic. This was an interesting one. I definitely like this more than I thought I expected I would. I don't know even for what particular reason. I expected more of like a romantic comedy style for when I heard the name Odd Couple.
Oh, I see what you mean. Oh, so you had no real knowledge of the concept even beforehand. I mean,
I know
it's a general
concept,
but obviously, I
didn't know there was
I didn't
know there was like a specific example for it. So
okay.
It's kind of like the ultimate expression of like the end of like what is it, Escape from New York, where the dude just reveals he's a guy and goes like, well, nobody's perfect.
Yeah.
That's basically this whole movie.
Wait, what? The Some Like It Hot?
Some Like It Hot. What was I saying?
You said Escape from New York.
Oh, wow. No, where the hell is my head? I've been very stressed, people. All right,
Well,
I'm moving across the country.
It's Snake Plissken in the... Oh my fuck. Jack Lemmon is in Some Like It Hot. It's Snake Plissken and Jack Lemmon role. You did that on purpose.
I did.
I'm sure you did.
I did. Yes. Haha. I did a smart funny this time, people. Haha.
Oh. You cannot do any better than that. I'm warning you right now.
But I'm not gonna. As always, I am your sometimes brilliant host, Stuart.
And I'm your host, Jacob.
The never not brilliant. Let's go with that.
I am never not brilliant. I am making linguini as we speak.
Jesus Christ. Have a good night, everybody.
Good night.
For 6 months, I've lived alone in this apartment. All alone in 8 big rooms. I was dejected, despondent, and disgusted. And then you moved in. My closest and dearest friend. And after 3 weeks of close personal contact, I'm about to have a nervous breakdown. Do me a favor, will you, Felix? Move into the kitchen. Live with your pots, your pans, your ladles, your meat thermometers. When you want to come out, just ring a bell, and I'll run into the bedroom. I'm asking you nicely, Felix, as a friend. Stay out of my way.